In the mid-1960s, when France was known for small city cars and experimental designs, one company decided to do something unusual. Sovam, a firm based in Parthenay in the Deux-Sèvres region, was already busy building delivery vans and airport equipment. But for a few short years, between 1965 and 1968, they tried their hand at making sports cars. The result was short-lived, rare, and unusual. It was also the kind of project that makes you wonder what happens when engineers who build baggage tractors suddenly decide to build something that looks fast. Sovam stood for Société des Véhicules André Morin. André Morin was the founder, and he had already made a name by producing camions magazines, which were mobile shops. By the early 1960s, Sovam also built ground support vehicles for airports. In 1964, they created something called the VUL, short for Véhicule Utilitaire de Livraison. It was based on the Renault 4 chassis, shortened and covered with a polyester body. This simple delivery van gave them the idea that they could also build a sports coupe. For this project, they called on designer Jacques Durand, a man who would later be involved in other small French cars. The first sports model was the Sovam 850 VS, introduced around 1965. It used an 845 cubic centimeter Renault Billancourt engine, the same type found in the Renault Dauphine. It had a Solex carburetor, a 3-speed gearbox, and drum brakes all around. The whole car weighed about 1,235 pounds, which helped it reach a top speed close to 90 miles per hour. That might not impress muscle car fans, but for a lightweight French coupe, it was enough. A total of about 62 examples of the Sovam 850 VS were made. In 1966 came the Sovam 1100 VS. This one had a bigger Renault Clion Fonte engine with 1,108 cubic centimeters. It offered a bit more speed, closer to 102 miles per hour, and optional disc brakes in the front. Only about 77 of these cars were built, but they made a mark. French driver Maïté Patou even drove one of these in rallies. In fact, she took an 850 VS earlier all the way from Paris to Calcutta and back, about 18,500 kilometers, alongside Chantal Bernard. That was no small trip for a small French coupe. By 1967, Sovam released the Sovam 1300 GS. This was the most ambitious version, fitted with a Renault 8 Gordini engine of 1,255 cubic centimeters, producing over 100 horsepower. It had a 5-speed gearbox and optional disc brakes on all 4 wheels. With a top speed around 121 miles per hour, it was the fastest Sovam yet. Only about 5 or 6 were ever built, but it did win a gold medal at the 1967 Paris Salon for Art and Industry Automobile. That was the high point before things slowed down. Altogether, fewer than 150 sports cars left the Parthenay workshops. Today, about 58 survive, and maybe 30 of them still drive. The project ended in 1968, and Sovam returned to what it knew best: airport steps, catering trucks, and utility vehicles. The sports cars remain a strange but charming reminder that sometimes even a company that moves luggage around can dream of building something that moves fast. And maybe that is the part that makes them memorable. The Stimson Scorcher is one of those machines that makes people stop, stare, and sometimes scratch their heads. It looks unusual, feels unusual, and even the laws of the United Kingdom could not quite decide what it was. Designed in the late 1970s, it came from a mind that never liked ordinary cars. At first glance, you might think it is a toy or a prop, but behind the fiberglass body sits a story filled with ideas, failures, odd laws, and a touch of humor. The Stimson Scorcher was designed by Barry Stimson, a designer known for creating unusual kit cars. It was built by Nouveau Developments, a company based in Brighton in the United Kingdom. Production began in 1976 and lasted until 1980. During that time, only about 30 units were made. A later revival in 1981 by Gerald Pickford managed to add only 3 more units before the idea ran out of fuel. The Scorcher was based on the Austin Mini. The engine, gearbox, and subframe all came from the Mini. These parts were mounted at the front and powered the 2 front wheels. Engine choices ranged from 848 cubic centimeter to 1,275 cubic centimeter. Even the smallest engine, the 848 cubic centimeter, could push the light 3-wheeler to around 100 miles per hour. That speed was possible because the Scorcher weighed only about 560 pounds. A car that light almost felt like a go-kart for the road. The layout was very unusual. Instead of normal side-by-side seating, the Stimson Scorcher had 3 seats placed in a row. The driver sat up front and the 2 passengers lined up behind. It was a bit like sitting on a motorcycle, only with a body made of fiberglass and a steering wheel instead of handlebars. The body was a plastic shell over a tubular steel frame, leaving the engine and the people mostly exposed, unless buyers paid extra for a bonnet. The law in the United Kingdom had trouble classifying this vehicle. Officials finally decided it counted as a motorcycle sidecar combination. This meant that 2 of the people had to wear helmets, but the third, who was considered the sidecar passenger, could legally ride without one. Barry Stimson himself suggested that everyone should wear a helmet anyway, especially since the vehicle was fast enough to be scary. The kit sold for £385 when it first came out. Buyers could even carry it home on a car roof rack before starting assembly in the driveway. They were expected to gather the mini parts themselves, often from wrecked or damaged cars. It sounded simple, but not many people wanted a 3-seat fiberglass rocket that confused both drivers and the law. Barry Stimson later admitted that the Scorcher was the worst seller of all his cars, but it also became the most talked about. Automotive historian Steve Hole once called it one of the most bonkers kit cars ever built. Today, the few surviving examples are seen as strange reminders of a time when designers could take risks without much concern. Whether you see it as a failed product or a brilliant experiment, the Stimson Scorcher is a story worth telling. Imagine a small Swedish company that saw a British sports car in London, went home to Arvika, and decided to build its own. The result was Yascar Indigo 3000, beautiful, quick, and rare. This story follows the people, places, numbers, and lessons behind that short adventure from Sweden's roads. In 1993, Bengt Lidmalm visited a TVR showroom in London and felt a spark. In 1994, in Arvika, Sweden, he and Sven-Olof Fogelberg founded Yascar AB to build a simple, honest roadster. They hired Hans Philip Zacko, known for work on the Volvo 850, to design the car that became the Indigo 3000. A prototype appeared in 1995. Production began in 1996, and the first customer took delivery in 1997. Yascar AB even opened a new facility in Amal in 1997. The plan sounded bold: 50 cars in 1996, 250 in 1997, then 500 per year. Reality had other ideas, as reality often does. The Indigo 3000 used a practical recipe. It wore composite body panels over a galvanized steel space frame chassis. The layout was front engine and rear-wheel drive. Under the long hood sat a 3.0-liter Volvo inline 6-cylinder with 204 brake horsepower. Power went through a 5-speed manual using a Volvo 960 gearbox. The car mixed clever parts: rear suspension from Volvo, a fuel tank from a Saab 900, seat bases from a Volvo S40, and a steering column from a Volvo 850. The front suspension was bespoke. Features included power steering, optional anti-lock braking system, rollover bars, disc brakes on all wheels, automatic headlights, and heated mirrors. If you like your sports car with reliability and warm hands, this was your moment. Performance was strong for the time. The Indigo 3000 could do 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 6.5 seconds and reach a top speed near 155 miles per hour. Curb weight landed around 2,205 pounds, light for a 6-cylinder roadster. Dimensions were tidy, length about 4,300 millimeters, width about 1,760 millimeters, height about 1,140 millimeters, and wheelbase about 2,520 millimeters. Reviewers compared it with the Alfa Romeo Spider and the BMW Z3, and many thought the Swedish car held its own. It also earned the Utmärkt Svensk Form Design Award in 1996, which is a fine thing to tell your parents. Production, however, struggled. Only 3 cars were built in 1996. By the end of 1998, production had stopped, and total output reached just 44 cars. Bankruptcy came in 2003. Still, the idea did not fully fade. In 2021, about 20 surviving Indigo 3000 cars reunited in Sweden, which must have been a cheerful parking lot. Reports and specifications have been preserved by Wikipedia, Flawed Cars, Dialer, Carfolio, Fastest Laps, and Ultimate Specs, while photos pop up on supercars.net, Autogespot, and autoblog.nl. There was even talk of an Indigo 3000R revival concept, the Glossy car. Indigo 3000 remains a short, clear lesson. Good design, steady engineering, and a brave plan can make a memorable car, even when the numbers do not add up. The story you are about to hear begins with a mystery shape on a show stand in Turin and stretches from a small workshop in Vercelli to rumors of cars headed for the United States. It involves a World War II flying ace, a coach builder named Francis Lombardi, bold plans, and a mid-engine dream that almost happened. Carlo Francis Lombardi founded Carrozzeria Francis Lombardi in Vercelli in 1947. After 1950, the firm focused on automobiles, reshaping humble Fiats into useful city cars. The company built 4-door Luciola versions of the Fiat 600, Fiat 850, and Fiat 127, and a tidy dress-up line for the Fiat 500 called My Car, selling thousands per year. In 1963, Francis Lombardi even created a Fiat 2300 limousine with a glass roof for Pope Paul VI, widely remembered as the first modern Pope-mobile. Through the late 1960s, the firm offered the Lombardi Grand Prix, a small rear-engine sports coupe that also appeared as the OTAS 820, the Giannini 1000 Grand Prix, and the Abarth Scorpione. As original equipment manufacturer ranges expanded, money grew tight, and the company faded between 1973 and 1976. Then came the bold answer, the Francis Lombardi FL1. It appeared at the 1972 Turin Motor Show, also called the Turin Auto Salon. The FL1 was low and wide, about 4,214 millimeters long, 1,700 millimeters wide, and 1,135 millimeters high. It was light too, roughly 1,764 pounds, which made the promised performance sound reasonable. Carrozzerie Italiane and Story Cars describe 2 planned engines, a 2.0-liter Lancia fuel-injected unit with a claimed top speed of 125 miles per hour, and a 3.0-liter Ford V6 with a claimed 140 miles per hour. The plan called for 150 to 200 cars per year. That is the kind of plan you draw on a cafe napkin while trying not to spill espresso. Writers have noted how the layout seemed influenced by the Lancia Flavia and its flat boxer engine and transaxle, which suit a mid-engine approach. The wedge nose and hidden headlights felt like a clear step forward from the Lombardi Grand Prix. Poeschl on Cars blog even connects ideas between the two. English Wikipedia, German Wikipedia, and Italian Wikipedia map the company's arc from its post-war start to its difficult final years. The Antique Automobile Club of America forums collect a lively thread of clues about what happened next. According to that discussion, Ferruccio Covini may have acquired the lone FL1 prototype after the show. He reworked the rear, altered the powertrain, and showed it as the Covini Serio, sometimes called B24 Serio, at the 1981 Geneva Motor Show. Some say he produced about 9 Serio cars, and that an export version used the name BT424 for the United States. The rumor trail is colorful. The production numbers are small enough to fit in a carpool. In the end, the Francis Lombardi FL1 never reached customers. Yet its names, places, and models: Francis Lombardi, Vercelli, Turin Motor Show, Fiat 600, Fiat 850, Fiat 127, Fiat 500. My car, Popemobile for Pope Paul VI, Lombardy Grand Prix, Otaz 820, Giannini 1000 Grand Prix, Abarth Scorpione, Lancia Flavia, Carrozzerieri Italiani, Story Cars, Poeschl on Cars blog, English Wikipedia, German Wikipedia, Italian Wikipedia, Antique Automobile Club of America forums, Ferruccio Covini, Covini Serio, B24 Serio, BT424, still tell a clear story about a small team aiming high and learning how heavy one dream can be, even at 1,764 pounds.